Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Maritime Skipper. Today we'll be talking about the steamship Arctic, which will be our second sinking steamer, as it sunk after a collision with the SS Vesta. I hope you enjoy, and thank you all for making me reach 300 views on the Atlantic video. That's actually our highest view video. Yes, so thank you very much. Well, let's begin. SS Arctic was a 2,856-ton paddle steamer, one of the Collins Line, which operated a transatlantic passenger and mail steamship service in the 1850s. She was the largest of a fleet of four, built with the aid of U.S. government subsidies to challenge the transatlantic supremacy of the British-backed Cunard Line. During its 4-year period of service, the ship was renowned both for its speed and for the luxury of its combinations. September 27, 1854, while on passage to New York from Liverpool, Arctic collided in fog with the French steamer Vesta off the coast of Newfoundland and sank 4 hours later. Arctic's lifeboat capacity was around 80, enough for less than half those on board. Remember, there were not enough lifeboats for everyone until the Titanic disaster. The boats were launched in an atmosphere of panic and disorder, and the principal of women and children first were ignored. From around 400 aboard, 250 passengers, 150 crew, 24 male passengers, and 61 crew survived. All the women and children sadly died. No one was called to account for the disaster. No official inquiry was held. Lifeboat provision on passenger-carrying ships remained inadequate until well into the 20th century, 1900s. Background. The first steamship line to begin regular transatlantic steamer services was the British-backed Cunard Line, which began operating on July 4, 1840, the departure from Liverpool of RMS Britannia, bound for Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Boston. As a principal transatlantic mail carrier, the Cunard Line received subsidies from the British government and from the United States Post Office Department. Many Americans, however, thought that an American line should benefit from these subsidies. Thus, in 1845, the United States Postmaster General asked shipowners to tender for the right to operate a subsidized passenger mail service between the U.S. to Europe. The success bidder announced on March 3, 1847 was Edward Knight Collins. On the basis of the mail contract, Collins founded the New York and Liverpool United States Mail Steamship Company, familiarly known as the Collins Line, began an ambitious steamship construction program. Construction and launching of the SS Arctic. The William H. Brown and the Jacob Bell shipyards were each contracted to build two large wooden paddle steamers for use by Collins in a regular twice-monthly transatlantic mail service. The Collins Line will receive an annual subsidy initially of $385,000 a year from the U.S. government. Part of the government's interest in the project lay in the potential of these ships for use in time of war. They were constructed in a manner that facilitated rapid conversion to warships should the need arise. Arctic, built at Brown Shipyard, designed by George Steers, was the third of four ships to be launched following SS Atlantic and SS Pacific. SS Atlantic is not the SS Atlantic we previously talked about. It's SS Atlantic for this line, for the Collins Line, yes. SS Pacific was marginally the largest of the four. She was 284 feet, 87 meters in length, measured at 2,856 tonnage by the U.S. custom house measurement then in use. Her two side-level steam engines, which accounted for $250,000 of the total construction cost of $700,000, were built and fitted by Stillman, Allen and Company. Each generated 1,000 horsepower, towing the 35.5-foot, 10.8 meters paddle wheels at 16 revolutionary at a minute of full speed. Like her sister ships, Arctic was built to a luxurious standard. A contemporary description refers to her furnishings and fittings as giving an air of almost oriental magnificence. The lady saloon was described as a gorgeous yet beautiful apartment, brilliant with light, presenting as cheerful as a scene as a hot could crave. Arctic was launched on January 28, 1850, from Brownsville Island, New York's East River, before a large crowd. According to a press account, it was the most stupendous vessel ever constructed in the United States, all the world since the prehistoric days of Noah. The New York Herald reporter described the crowd's reaction as ships into the water. Men waved their hats, ladies their handkerchiefs, in admiration of the glad event. The thousands who witnessed her launch stood for nearly half an hour complimenting the splendid vessel. Service history. Under Captain James F. Lewis, Arctic, now fully fitted out, underwent her sea trials during October 18 to 19, 1850, in preparation for entering regular transatlantic service on October 26. That first voyage to Liverpool passed without incident. In the years that followed, Arctic established a reputation as one of the fastest of ocean liners, regularly completing the crossing in 10 days and sometimes less. February 1852, she reached Liverpool in 9 days, 17 hours, considered an exceptional time for winter crossing. She became the most celebrated of the colony ships and was known as the Clipper of the Seas. On 23rd November 1853, Arctic ran aground on Broadmoor Bank in Liverpool Bay, while on a voyage from New York to Liverpool. She was refloating into Liverpool. On 18 May 1854, Arctic struck the Black Rock off the coast of the Saltee Islands country Wexford whilst on a voyage from Liverpool to New York. She was refloated and put back to Liverpool. In July 1854, Arctic's engines were adapted in the hope to reduce the heavy fuel costs that were helping to undermine the ship's profitability. The Baltimore Sun reported that the modifications were an invention of a Baltimore firm, Weathersboro, and if successful, reduced fuel costs by half. The powerful engines fitted to Arctic and her sisters strained their wooden hulls, and the line incurred large expenses in maintaining the vessels. Sinking the SS Arctic. September 27, 1854, while en route to New York from Liverpool, the Arctic collided with SS Vesta, a much smaller vessel, 50 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. There was roughly 400 passengers on board the Arctic, approximately 250 passengers and 150 crew. Captain Lewis' first thought was to give assistance to the stricken Vesta, which appeared in danger of sinking, but when he was told that his own ship was hull beneath the wildlife, he decided to make for the nearest land. As the temperature plunged, the leaks failed. Arctic's hull steadily filled with seawater. The boiler fires were gradually extinguished and the engines slowly and stopped, sail from filling. And if you didn't know, if salt water and seawater is in contact with a boiler, that can result in a huge explosion. Now, there are some videos of how the Titanic's boilers did not explode, so I recommend checking that out. In accordance with the maritime regulations that enforced, Arctic carried 6 lifeboats, total capacity which was around 180. Lewis under these launched, but a breakdown discipline among the crew meant that more places in the boat were taken by members of the crew, or by the more able-bodied passengers, one of which was a French ambassador, the Duc de Gramont, who was observed jumping from the ship into one of the last lifeboats. The rest were left in makeshift rafts, but were unable to leave the ship and went down with her when she sank. 4 hours after the collision, Captain Lewis himself, unlike his crew, went down with his ship, although he survived somehow. Meanwhile, Vesta, which appeared to have sustained mortal damage, was saved from sinking by a watertight bulkhead, was able to gain the harbor of St. John's, Newfoundland. And I believe St. John is the capital of Newfoundland, like the main city. 2 of the 6 lifeboats that left Arctic safely reached Newfoundland shore, and another was picked by a passing steamer, which also rescued a few survivors from improvising rafts. Among these were Captain Lewis, who have regained the surface after initially going down with the ship. He was rescued after cleaning the wreckage of the paddle wheel box for 2 days. The other 3 boats disappeared without trace. In all, more than 300 lives were lost. The 85 survivors included 61 of the crew and 24 male passengers. All the women and children on board perished. Among those who lost were the wife of Admiral Collins and two of his children. Other victims include several members of the Brown family, whose banks Brown brothers had helped to finance the Collins line. Also lost was Frederick Catherwood, the English architect and painter whose name was mysteriously left off the official casualty list for weeks until a concerted effort by his friends colleagues resulted in a belated incident by authorities and newspapers. In addition to the tragic loss of human life, a rare copy of William Shakespeare's first folio that New York Shakespeare collector Alden W. Griswold had purchased in ships from Liverpool was lost. Among the lost as well was Malone Day, prominent New York publisher of children's book and business publications, with his wife and daughter. Aftermath of the Arctic. Limited and telegraph communication at the time when that news of Arctic's loss now reached New Yorkers at 2 weeks after the sinking. As the full story emerged, initial public sour as the ship's loss quickly turned a condemnation of the perceived cowardice of the crew and the failure of duty towards their passengers. Although some newspapers demanded an inquiry into the disaster, none were held, and nobody was called to account for their actions. Proposals that lifeboat capacity of passenger carrying vessels should be increased to provide a place for every passenger aboard were not acted on. Captain Lewis was generally exonerated for blame by the public, retired from the sea. Some of the crew's survivors chose not to return to the U.S. The Collins line continued its transatlantic service till a fall of maritime loss and insolvency led to its closure in 1858. James Brown, president of both Brown Banks and the Collins Line, erected a grand monument in Greenwell Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York, to the 6 members of the family lost in the Arctic disaster. It incorporates a sculpture of the ship half submerged by the waves. The name of those who died are inscribed on the pedestal. That was a sad and interesting sinking in of history and service of the SS of the steamship Arctic. Thank you all for listening and watching. And I might be doing a little mini thing about the Collins line, as some people are getting fascinated about it. I will be posting a link to Part-Time Explorer's video of the SS Arctic, and I recommend you subscribe to him as he is very nice and great YouTuber. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.